Hey guys, Clayton Clemons here. I'm with the Agent Resources team, and I'm sitting down with my buddy here, Bryan Vinegar from Cigna, and we just want to have a conversation about some cancer insurance. So, Bryan, I'm going to kick it right over to you and say, what's your history with cancer insurance? What are we here talking about?
Yeah, sure. First, I want to thank, Senior Marketing Specialist for having me. You guys are a great partner. And with Cigna, ever since I started, I was told, value this relationship. And I know that, everyone from the top on down are great people. So thank you guys for having me in the studio. I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to the conversation. So back to your question, my history with cancer insurance starts about 15 years ago. I worked with, when I very first got into the insurance industry, worked with a couple different companies, not at the same time. And we had a core product or core products that would be similar to what we would, like the ACA products now.
Gotcha.
And then we had supplemental health products as well that we could sell. So my first introduction to cancer insurance was one of those, and by the way, we sell these or they're available.
But
by the way, stick to
way.
selling these core products is kind of how it was. So that was my first introduction about 15 years ago with cancer insurance.
Gotcha. I love the oh, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, we have this. So what makes you so passionate about cancer insurance today? Because I know that's a big passion of yours as well.
Sure. I thought about this traveling here, and so this is going to be a little bit longer answer. I hope you guys can bear with me. I want to break it down in a couple sections. So initially, when I got into the business, I talked about the company I worked for that kind of had an, oh, by the way, we also offer these products. I was calling on clients that were current customers and trying to set appointments for our DVH product, right? They said you can get more homes with the DVH product. End up seeing this lady in Curo, Texas. Okay. I knocked on the door. I come in, I'm doing my sales pitch as we always do, right? And in the middle of my pitch, she kind of just stopped me and she goes, "You don't have to sell me on your company. You don't have to sell me on your products. I'll take it. It's in my price range. I'll buy the DVH product from you." And I was like, wow, okay, this is great.
Done deal.
She goes, "Let me tell you why. About 3 or 4 years ago, another agent came into my home and sold my husband and I a $30,000 cancer policy." Well, shortly after that, her husband was diagnosed with cancer. Unfortunately, fortunately, they got to it in time. They were forever grateful. They got a check for $30,000. She said we were able to maintain our lifestyle, kind of our normal standard way of living, and we would not have been able to afford it had it not been for that cancer plan.
Man.
And again, I was just a newer agent. I didn't really respect the product that I had available to me.
It was a oh, by the way.
It was a oh, by the way, before you leave the house, we have these things and here's, a whole book you can look through if you want. But there wasn't really any training or selling on it or really truly an understanding of what the impact was when someone needed it and it worked for them, right?
Yeah.
And so that gave me a great perspective to move forward with it in my career. So that's part of the answer. I'll pause.
I love that part of the answer. Let me say that. I love that you saw that somebody was affected by it and that stuck with you today. Because how long ago was that?
This was about 13, 14 years ago.
And stuck with you today. So
it did, absolutely.
So go ahead. I don't want to stop you.
No, it's perfect. The second piece to that, selling cancer insurance actually helped spring my career forward. It was one of the things where the oh, by the way product here at Cigna, work for Cigna now, I started as a temp to hire sales agent on the direct-to-consumer sales team. And it was a med sup shop. About 98 to 99% of what they sold was Medicare supplement. Got in there and they said, oh, by the way, we also can sell cancer insurance. We can sell life insurance. And so I started thinking about how do I maximize every opportunity? Because I'm not like a lot of the agents out there where I have tons of money saved up and, I'm driving my dream car and my home is paid for. I needed to continue to make sure I made commissions and made an impact every time I engage with someone. So I learned to cross-sell the cancer policy. And I kind of was a little slow to start with Medicare supplement. And they kind of give you that 30 days, like make or break. And it bought me time. Being able to sell it almost within the first week, I was looked at as like the guy who could sell cancer
and
cancer insurance. And so it kind of got my career started with Cigna. It bought me more time to learn the MedSup product. And then it also, in the end, proved to give me more sales weekly than what my peers were getting because I was selling multiple products.
Right.
So it made me stand out amongst my peers. And so for that, I'm always passionate about.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, you said a phrase in there that I loved was you wanted to maximize every appointment or every time you had a chance to speak to an individual.
Sure.
And I think that's a lot of what we talk about with cross-selling is the fact that you want to maximize your time, not only from a take care of yourself situation, but you knew the protection you were giving somebody by offering that. And that's probably what gravitated you to offering that product over the MedSup. Or not over it, but like that was where your passion was.
So it was kind of an addition to. So think of it this way. When you're out selling MedSups, folks that sell MedSups know that they've dealt with this. It's different than MA. It's a guaranteed issue. There's really no health questions. Well, on a MedSup, you can have someone say yes. And there's still some obstacles that stand in front of you. One is pricing, right? Mm-hmm. So depending on what you're able to sell, and at the time, I was only able to sell Cigna's product.
Yeah.
So if their pricing was better, there was nowhere else for me to go. And so I had to learn to pivot and transition into offering another product. The other piece to that is there's folks that say yes, and then they don't qualify due to health reasons.
Yeah.
And so folks that are used to hearing, you don't qualify because you have diabetes, or you don't qualify because of height and weight, whatever it may be, they're used to being told no. And so what I found is that my closing ratio actually went up on folks who were typical health declines for Medicare supplement when I said, oh, by the way, I do have this product that'll work for you as long as you've been cancer-free. At the time, it was 10 years. Yeah. Now it's 5 years in most states.
So that kind of brings me to my next point, was I wanted to ask you about how you transitioned that. Even if you sold them on the Medicare supplement, they said yes, we'll leave it up to the carrier to actually say yes or no, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But how did you switch that appointment over? What transition did you use to get into talking more about cancer insurance?
No, that's a great question. I think it starts with your needs analysis. Mm-hmm. Everyone knows in sales, there's a sales process. And each company has their different 10-step, 7-step, whatever it may be, sales process. Within the needs analysis, that's where you're starting the conversation. That's where you're trying to get an understanding of what products are going to work best for the client that I'm in front of. I would start with, understanding my core product. So I'm starting with the MedSup. I'm starting with whatever that ACA product was I was selling in the past. Within that conversation, for a Medicare supplement, you have two different ways to do it. You can do it in the beginning. We get the needs analysis. You can ask them, does cancer or heart attack or stroke or anything like that run in your family? You can do that early on.
Yeah.
Where I would do it typically is on an underwritten app. I would do it within that question. So you're asking the health questions. You're able to take that information from the health question and say, okay, you have cancer in the last X amount of years, and they say no. You go, oh, okay, by the way, does cancer run in your family? No. And then I leave it alone.
You let the app do the questions for you.
The app set it up for me.
Yeah, I love that.
I took that information, put it in my pocket. I continued on with the core product, right?
Yeah.
Once I was completed, selling the core product, I would circle back to them and say, earlier in our conversation, you mentioned that cancer ran in your family. Well, we have a product that works, and it pays out a lump sum.
Yeah.
And I would go into pitching the product and letting them know how the product works for them instead of just saying, well, we have cancer insurance. Would you be
by the way.
Yes. Cancer plan for anyone? Yeah, exactly right.
So in that appointment then, about how much time do you think was added because you were a cross-selling guru?
I would say probably 5 to 10 minutes. They're one of the shortest apps. That was another thing that drew me to saying, hey, I can sell a lot of these in a day if I get good at it. It's like a quick, 3 to 5 questions. You're putting in their basic information and you're hitting submit. As an agent, anyone, kind of the worst things that can happen to you as an agent is not only being told no, but it's also submitting an application and then getting a decline on the back end, right?
Doing all the work.
Nobody likes to get declined.
Yeah.
Well, what I found with our cancer product was that it was a simplified underwriting.
Yeah.
So basically, if you can answer no to having cancer within the last 5 years, no to HIV, and no to test pending, where cancer is not still being determined, you qualify. You can be a tobacco user, height and weight doesn't come into play. You can be on, 6 blood pressure medications. You can have diabetes, all the things that we know will prevent someone for qualifying for a standard underwritten app, whatever products it may be, doesn't stand in the way. It's basically cancer. And then once you get that out the way, you can move on and know, once I submit this is gold.
Yeah. So on that same front, did you run into situations where you sold them on that core product, you were going through it, you wanted to talk cancer insurance, and then the person, they said, not the carrier said no, but the person said, you know what, you're just trying to sell me too much stuff, I'm out. I don't want to talk about this anymore.
Absolutely. I mean, that's where you have to have the fine line. Yeah. If you're overselling, it comes off as you're overselling. And I've watched so many people. I ran a sales team within Cigna for over a decade. And I would watch people, especially right after a training. That's when they're going out and they're going to sell everything that you've told them to sell. And then they get told no enough. And then they're back to their kind of old way or old habits. That's why I always thought it was important to stay on the core product.
Yeah.
Close down whatever you're selling. If it's an MA plan, sell the MA plan. If it's a Med-Sup plan, sell your core product first, and then circle back to them with the other products.
Yeah.
And or if you can't sell your core product due to whatever reasons, whether it be health reasons, whether it be you can't, transition from a Med-Sup because of pricing or whatever it may be, health reasons, then you can transition to another product. And
that makes sense because the way you did it, you were selling based off the application questions. You guys were already past that point.
Correct.
Of not no return, but past the point of you sold it, it was closed. You're going through logistics at that point. So I do like that. But in your opinion on in that appointment, what was the thing that really brought people to say, yes, I want that cancer plan? Like, what stuck out about your product that made somebody want to take that product with you guys?
I would say there's a couple things. I would say one, you have to keep it simple.
Yeah.
If cancer or insurance and most health insurance is complicated.
Yep.
It is. It's not complicated for us because this is what we do every day, right?
Exactly.
But for the average person who has an appointment or meets with an agent once a year or once every 5 years, or depending on where they're at, it's a complicated navigation to figure out, where do I want to spend my money? What do I actually need? What works for me? And so the one thing I would say is you have to have a simplified approach. You have to say, if you get diagnosed with cancer, and I would get all these questions. My son said to ask you this. And I go, it's simple. If you get diagnosed with internal cancer, we pay you the benefit amount. It's $15,000, $20,000, whatever it is, we pay you that benefit amount.
Right.
Not over quoting. So another thing that we like to do is we like to sell the largest amount of premium possible and stick to that. And sometimes when you offer it and you say, hey, it's only going to cost you an extra $75 a month, now they've turned off their interest and it's hard to get them back. So I would always make sure that I gave them 3 options. And sometimes I would start at a very low, like 10 to 15,000. And then if I got a yes right away, I would just let them know that there is more comprehensive coverage available, and we can stair step it up based on what their budget looks like.
I like that. Playing around with their budget was like the most important thing. Have a couple things in the hopper ready to go.
Yeah. Being consistent with your pitch, knowing what you want to talk about, making sure that the client, when they walk away, because it's one thing to sell something, there's multiple ways to sell it. I want to go back to a question you asked about how to position it, how, to close these opportunities. One is that you can bundle sell it, right? You can sell it and just say, I sold the MA plan. By the way, it comes with this lump sum cancer. Let me tell you how it works, basic. And it's quick, and if it's in their budget, and they take it. But if their bank account is ever under scrutiny by a family member, by them, you want them to remember why that cancer plan was important. Why are they paying for it? If it's just something that you added on and they don't know anything else about it, when it's time for budget cuts, that gets cut.
Gone. First thing to go. Yep.
But when they go, no, this guy was, or this lady was adamant that this plan works for me, and after discussing it with them and understanding how it works, I know that's one I want to keep.
For sure.
So it's very important to make sure that you're selling the product and that the client actually understands how the product works and the benefit to them should they ever need it.
Gotcha. So was there one specific thing that you seemed like everybody just seemed to gravitate to?
I think it was just the lump sum, understanding that, hey, if you get diagnosed with cancer, here's the lump sum. We give you that money so you get a check. If it's $20,000, you're going to get a check for $20,000. The money doesn't go to you. It doesn't go to a doctor or hospital. You get to determine how you want to use it.
I love that.
And the other piece that they think is, everybody says, oh, by the time, I get this check, I'm going to have to pay out this, and I have to be stage 4 and dying.
Yeah.
And so what I started doing was understanding what the objections were going to be. The objections were going to be, I'm too old, I'm too old to, pay for cancer insurance. Why would I do that? I'm 75, right?
Right.
And that's what a lot of people on the other end of this camera is going to think. Why would I sell a 75-year-old? But you know what? With the advancements in treatment from, early diagnosis, people are diagnosed at 75 and living another 20, 30 years, and nobody is writing a book about them surviving cancer. So I think that everyone we offer from, I think, 18 to 89.
Yep.
I mean, pretty much everyone that you run into, you have an opportunity to sell it, and I think it makes sense. So I think that was the big thing, is making sure they understood how it worked, and that getting them to see down the future. If you think about anyone, when I would talk to folks that were 90 years old, one thing they always said, hope to see another year.
Yeah,
everyone wants to live another year. No one says, just wait and kick the bucket, right?
Yeah, you hope you don't have to hear that.
Right. Nobody said that to me.
That's good.
They want to live another year. They're, and getting folks to look past today and to look down the road and say, hey, even 10 years from now, this is something that I could benefit from. And you know what? Living to 85 is not a big thing anymore.
Yeah.
So I think that was a way to position it, especially with seniors.
And I love the fact that cancer insurance provides that security where that 75, 85-year-old doesn't have to think, well, is it really worth me getting treatment? Like, how much longer do I have? You don't have to, you take that out. You're like, cool, go get your treatment. Here's your check for the $30,000 policy we wrote you.
Yeah.
So I love that. Next question I got for you, though, is if you had to give us one piece of advice to tell our agents, this is how you can help sell more cancer insurance, what kind of pieces would you give us?
One word: consistency.
Love it.
I mean, there are so many talented agents out there, and I can tell you from running a sales team for many, many moons that the most talented people didn't always sell the most of whatever product it was we offer. It was the most consistent agents. So develop a pitch, understand what it is that you want to make sure that you communicate with the client, and do it every time. If you're only pitching 1 in 5, you only have a 20% chance of closing. If you pitch 5 of 5, you just gave yourself 4 times or however many more times the opportunity to make sales. And I think consistency overcomes, skill. It overcomes fear. Just a lot of things that, over time you'll say, hey, I've got a pitch. This is how it works. And giving them the solid spiel each time instead of saying, would you be interested in a cancer policy? With my team, the people who failed would say, I cross-sold. What do you want me to do? And they would say, I asked them if they wanted a cancer policy, and the people said no.
Yeah.
But that's not a true cross-sell.
Exactly.
So you have to give them a true cross-sell and a true, here's the benefit to the money that you're going to spend and why you need it anyway.
I love it. I feel like that's a really good tip that a lot of agents need to think about whenever they're thinking, should I start cross-selling?
Sure.
Is it really worth it? Is it worth the impact that's going to have on my appointment process? It's just be consistent. It's going to add 5-10 minutes to your appointment.
Yeah.
And as we know, it can help out kickstart your career if you're getting started in insurance, or it can really make a big impact on your future as an agency.
Absolutely. I mean, long term, there's a lot of additional opportunity by selling those. So you can also, when we think about, you can cross-sell it with the people that you are, you're in the home, you're on an appointment. Another thing you can do is go through your book of business.
Yeah.
You can go through your book of business for all the folks that you haven't sold to or haven't sold a cancer policy to, and just give them a call. It gives you a chance to make a contact with them. Hey, I'm going to call you before AEP. Times are a little bit slow right now in the summer. Let me just talk to them and see if they need a cancer policy.
Yeah.
One of the easiest sales I ever made in my life, and this was not to an existing client, but it was a lady on the phone. I had gone through my needs analysis. She told me cancer ran in her family. She told me that her mom had passed away from breast cancer. She told me she lost 2 sisters from breast cancer. And, you know, one of the things I asked her was like, well, why do you not own a cancer policy knowing that your family has been impacted? She goes, nobody's ever offered it to me. So that, to me, is something that everybody should be writing down. I'm like, so we know that, you know, financially you can afford it. Number 2, we know that it's something that you've seen the impact, the negative impact of cancer. Now it's more of how much benefit can we get for your budget, right?
Yep.
And it's very simple. So a lot of times people will sell you when you ask the right questions, and then it's just a simple, you move from being the sales guy that's telling them all about this to more of a consultant and guiding them through and helping them navigate through selecting the right amount of insurance and coverage that they need.
Yeah, transition from you're just a salesperson to you're an advisor.
Exactly.
And that person is no longer just a policy holder with one policy.
Yeah.
They're a client of yours because they trust that you're always looking out for their best interests. So I love that.
Well said.
I got nothing else for you, Bryan. I really appreciate your insight, and I know everybody else will too. So
Cool.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me,
Thank you,
guys.